Howdy folks, and welcome back to Mingles with Jingles, starting off with, because I know you love it, that Wanker of the Week. This one is actually me in my Jagd Panther 2, and I have the shockingly poor judgment of putting myself in a position where I'm attempting to defend a complete scumbag. Although I do have to say, I should be grateful that this scumbag in the French artillery notified me of his scumbaggery in so obvious a fashion right at the start of the game, rather than leaving it until later when we might actually have needed him. Still, if you want to commit suicide by Jagd Panther 2, I'm only too happy to oblige. And don't think of it as us losing an artillery, think of it as the enemy team losing a tank destroyer. Next up we have Ballistic Biscuit in his Cromwell, who has the severe misfortune to be on the same team as a whining crybaby in a Nassau, who, up to this point, has spent the entire game hiding behind his own artillery and whining and bitching at his team for being a bunch of noobs because XVM has told him so. A couple of seconds later, Ballistic Biscuit spots this douchebag in the Nassau actually making a move on the map, and his suspicions are aroused, so he rushes over to see if he can actually catch it on camera, and yes, he can. There he is. He's drowning himself. Yep, this is the kind of douchebag who lets XVM tell him whether or not he's won or lost the game while he's still staring at the loading screen. And the thing about XVM predicting that your team has a 60% chance of losing also means that your team has a 40% chance of winning. And if you keep throwing yourself into the lake at the start of the game just because XVM said so, it's going to be a 100% chance of losing for you. Our next contender for Wanker of the Week is Wargaming.net for having a game where shit like this keeps happening. What the hell? How is that even possible? Oh, but Jingles, it's just a fluke. Something like that can't possibly happen twice in the same game. Yeah, right. Challenge accepted. Later, in the same game, perfect flanking shot on this Tiger. Friendly KV-1S on the other side of the Tiger. The gun reloads. He takes the shot. He hits the KV-1S. The shot went right through the Tiger and bounced off the KV-1S on the other side. Oh, world of tanks, you so silly. But when it comes to Wanker of the Week, like the Highlander, there can be only one. Pay particular attention to that VK3001H sitting in the cap circle right at the start of this match on New Wanker. He really likes that spot in the cap circle. It's a position he is going to occupy for quite some time. But Jingles, I hear you all cry. A simple AFKer? How can this possibly be Wanker of the Week? Trust your Uncle Jingles, boys and girls. This is no simple AFKer. It's far better than that. I wouldn't let you down. You must trust your Uncle Jingles. It's going to be worth it. He may seem like a simple AFKer, and I can see how you would leap to that conclusion, but trust me, he is not. Battle has commenced. He's still sitting there in the cap circle. Sure seems AFK to me, Jingles. Oh, ye of little faith. Just you wait. Still looks pretty AFK to me, Jingles. Trust your Uncle Jingles, boys and girls. Sometime later, 7 tanks dead now, and yep, he's still sitting in the same spot in the cap circle, Jingles. He looks pretty AFK to us. Patience, young Padawan. All will soon be revealed. We're now 5 minutes into the game. 17 tanks are dead on both teams, and this guy finally figures out how to make his tank move forward. Well, we're really glad you could finally join us. I mean, we've been having a pretty tough game here. We could have used your help earlier, but hey, you're here now. That's all that matters. We sincerely hope whatever emergency it was that dragged you away from the keyboard when you pressed that battle button wasn't serious. Because, you know, that's what you're always saying to me, isn't it? Jingles, you shouldn't be so judgmental. There could be any number of different reasons why that guy didn't actually take part in the game for the first 5 minutes. This is true. There could be any number of different reasons. And the reason in this particular case is because he's a massive cock. Oh, Jingles, there you go again. You're being so judgmental. You can't possibly know why that guy sat in the cap circle for the first 5 minutes. You've got no way of knowing. But I do. I know, because he fucking tells us. There it is right there. He'll play World of Tanks any way he damn well pleases, and if that means he has to spend the first 5 minutes of a game picking his nose and watching his team die all around him, then that's the way he's gonna play the damn game. And if you've got a problem with that, he's going to sit behind this house for the rest of the game. He's going to watch his own artillery be forced to travel all the way across the map and die trying to kill the enemy artillery rather than lift a finger to help win the game. In fact, no, screw it. How dare you criticise the way I drive my tank? A draw's too good for you. Artillery, here I am, come and kill me. And you know what? He's right. He is entitled to play the game any way he wants to, even though his definition of playing the game looks an awful lot like not playing the game to most of the rest of us. But if I could just make two small suggestions. In future, you might want to stay away from competitive team games. You really don't seem to have the temperament for it. And also, go and choke on a big bag of dicks. Thanks. Have a nice day. Hang on a minute. What's this? Obsidian. Don't they make role-playing games? Yep, a lot of you are probably already aware of this, but for those of you who aren't, this is Armoured Warfare. It's coming out from Obsidian Entertainment. Looks like Gaijin and Wargaming.net aren't the only guys throwing their hat into the tank battle ring. Where this is likely to be very, very different, however, is that there's not just the multiplayer combat that you get in World of Tanks and War Thunder. As you'd expect, coming from a company like Obsidian, there's a very, very strong single player and cooperative element, and it's modern tanks. So we're going to be watching the development of this one with great interest. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can sign up for the beta test at the link in the video description. So anyway, Mingles with Jingles. Quickly talking about the Wanker of the Week replays that you just saw, I should rush to point out that when you saw me extract some revenge on the artillery who just decided he didn't like my Jagdpanther 2, that was a patch 8.9 World of Tanks replay. Seriously, do not retaliate against griefers like that douchebag in the artillery in that example. Since patch 8.9, Wargaming are getting very, very hard on people who do deliberate team damage. You'll get your account suspended. It's not worth it. Don't give them the satisfaction. If some griefing asshat decides he's going to ruin your game, well, all it's going to cost you is a ruined match. If you retaliate, it could cost you a suspended account. It is not worth it. Just report them for unfair play, accept that you're about to have your game ruined, jump into the next battle. Incidentally, we won that match. Despite being 14 against 16. Also, talking about Wanker of the Week, and specifically because I addressed the topic of bullying in last week's Mingles with Jingles, a couple of people have messaged me concerned that the people who are featured in Wanker of the Week might become victims of bullying in World of Tanks as a result of being featured on Wanker of the Week. Good! Got no sympathy whatsoever for deliberate douchebags. Sorry, that may make me a bad person. Don't care. If you don't want people to give you shit, don't be a douchebag. It's really simple. On the other hand, what you will never see on Wanker of the Week is people just being noobs. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being a newbie in a game. It doesn't matter what you're playing, right? We were all noobs once. On the bright side, if you are a noob, things can only get better. But a douchebag is always going to be a douchebag. And I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with exposing them in a very, very public fashion on YouTube. I consider it a community service. Other people have also said, Jingles, aren't you concerned that people are going to be playing like douchebags in World of Tanks just on the off chance that they might appear on Wanker of the Week? No. No, the wankers exist, therefore I do videos of them. Not the other way around, right? People were being douchebags in online games long before I started putting videos on YouTube. And if I stop putting videos on YouTube, everybody isn't suddenly going to start being nice to each other. That's not the way the world works. You see, the sad fact of the matter is that most people in human society only act like civilized human beings because they're afraid of the consequences if they don't act like civilized human beings. the threat of retribution is what keeps most people not being arseholes. And when you take away that threat or even promise of retribution, you know, if you don't behave yourself, this will happen to you. If you break the law, you will go to jail. When you take that threat of retribution away, you get the internet in general, and online gaming in particular. The internet's infamous for it. I mean, you get people who, if you met them in a bar, you know, and poured their own pint over their head, they would smile nervously and say, "Thank you, sir, please may I have another?" But in the comments section of a YouTube video, they turn into US Navy SEALs. It's because there's no threat of retribution. And this is why people are douchebags to each other in online games, because they can, and there's next to no punishment for doing it. And, you know, it's quite a sad statement on humanity in general, the fact, and it is a fact, that most people are only nice to each other because they're afraid of the consequences of not being nice to each other. And, you know, people are really not going to suddenly turn into civilized human beings just because I'm not putting Wanker of the Week up on Mingles with Jingles anymore. But I do realise that there may very well be in-game consequences, if you like, for anybody who does have the misfortune of appearing on Wanker of the Week. And that's why I do take particular care to only show people who are just genuinely being arseholes, right? I won't just put an example up of somebody playing like a noob, because there may be a very good reason why they're playing like a noob. They might be a noob, and there's nothing wrong with that. The genuine arseholes, on the other hand, I am delighted to keep putting them up on Wanker of the Week, and if there is any retribution that falls on their heads as a direct consequence of that, then I think that's fantastic. And if that makes me a cold, hard, cruel, thoughtless, nasty and mean person, well, I'll get over it. Next up, a whole bunch of you have been asking about the status of Project Man Cave. I haven't done a Man Cave video in a long time, and the reason for that is that I've pretty much got everything. I'm just waiting for the final piece of the collection to arrive, and it arrives today. The new computer. So, over the course of the next week, I'm likely to be incredibly busy getting everything set up and reconnected and reinstalling software on the new machine, getting all the collectibles on display and all the various different pieces of new furniture that I've bought, making the place look presentable, and then once all of that is done, and in the meantime still trying to get a video put up every day, I'm going to be really, really busy. But once all of that's done, there'll be one final Project Man Cave video. And that'll be the Man Cave itself, although Nerd Cave is probably a more accurate description. But, you know, you're going to see the gaming setup. 2 computers, one for rendering video, one for playing games on. All the memorabilia and collectibles, not just the new stuff that you saw in the unboxing video. I've been collecting stuff for a long, long time. There's all sorts of Gucci stuff that you're going to see in the final Project Man Cave video. I can't say when I'm going to be able to show you the video. I still have to get a video up every day. But the end is in sight. So that's the Project Man Cave status update. Last piece of the puzzle arriving today, the new computer, and then I can finally get everything plugged in, switched on, connected up, make the place look presentable, and do a video of the whole gaming setup, all the collectibles, all the memorabilia. Speaking of being mind-bogglingly busy, Sunday, which is traditionally a day of rest in most cultures, is anything but for me. It is easily my busiest day of the week. And it's all down to this bloody Mingles with Jingles that I have to get up every Monday. Don't get me wrong, I like doing the video, and I love the response the video gets as well. The whole idea of doing a Mingles with Jingles style video every week, you can blame Side Strafe for that. He does a strafing run video every week. Devil Dog Gamer, I also watch some of the videos he does where he answers some of the questions you get asked, and I thought, oh, that's a great idea. And I have actually really enjoyed doing these videos, and I still do. But holy crap, it takes like 9 or 10 hours for me to make one of these videos. My Sundays are easily my busiest day of the week. Sundays are just complete write-offs. I cannot get anything done on Sundays other than making Mingles with Jingles. And that's kind of worrying because the weather's getting warmer and I'm going to start going airsofting again. And we play airsoft on Sundays. But I'm definitely going to be making time for some more airsoft videos as the weather is warming up, and get myself back up to Combat South and get some filming done up there. They're not the most popular videos I put up on the YouTube channel, but I'm going to keep doing them anyway, because, hell, I don't do it because you lot like it, I do it because I like it. And it has the added benefit of being the only exercise my fat ass gets, so I really do need to go airsofting, otherwise I'm never going to get my ass out of the man cave. Of course, speaking of the man cave, and with the fact that the new computer arrives today, and then I've got to set that up and connect it and put it in the place where the existing computer is, move that one aside, set that one up again, and so on and so on and so on, there's a distinct possibility something could go wrong and I may be offline for a day or two. Probably not, but you never know. Either way, by the time you're watching this video, I'm probably going to be up to my elbows in boxes and packing crates and computer parts. And it's not going to leave me an awful lot of time for tonight's regular Monday night weekly live stream of World of Tanks with circumflexes, so I'm calling it now. There's going to be no live stream tonight. Well, there will be a live stream. Circumflexes streams whether I'm there or not, but I'm not going to be there tonight. I will make it up to him at some other point. But it is a real busy time to be Jingles at the moment. You know, in a good way. All sorts of new stuff arriving. Not least of which the World of Tanks patch 9.0 test server. I've already put one video up at that. Getting very excited about the historical battles in World of Tanks. Not least of which because some of you may already be aware of this. I've spoken about it at various points in the past, but the historical battles that you're seeing on the World of Tanks patch 9.0 test server are based on the foundations that were laid by us, the players, a couple of years back. There were a bunch of us on the EU server who used to run our own historical battles every weekend. They were organised, and most of the hard work was done, credit where credit is due, most of the hard work was done by a German player called Zoran Warfield. He was the guy that did the research, figured out what tanks took part in which battles, figured out the equipment setup that those tanks had to make the tank battles historically accurate, and he organised the games. All we did was turn up and play them. He did the lion's share of the work. But there were people from Wargaming who were paying careful attention to the work that Zoran Warfield and other players were doing in organising these historical battles. And looking at the historical battles on the patch 9.0 test server, they are, certainly in my opinion, heavily influenced by the work that the community did to make historical battles work back in the day for ourselves. And it's amusing when you look at the complaints that are being levelled at the historical battle mode on the test server. The balancing issues that Wargaming are having are exactly the same balancing issues that we were having years back when we were trying to put Panthers and Tigers up against T-3485s and SU-152s, for example. It's funny how the more everything changes, the more it stays the same. Now, Wargaming's historical battles are doing a lot of the things that we did in our historical battles, the most obvious feature being the equipment setup on the relevant tanks. So, for example, the long 88mm gun that you can have on the Tiger at Tier 7 is a historically inaccurate gun. That's the KWK-43 88mm gun. That was the King Tiger's gun. You can have it on the Tiger in World of Tanks. The real Tiger never had it. The real Tiger had the KWK-36 88mm gun. That's the 88mm gun with 132mm of penetration, which is a bit shitty at Tier 7, but historically that gun was used against Shermans, T-34s, more than good enough for devastating the kind of tanks that the Tiger was thrown into battle with. And so if you queue up a Tiger for a historical battle in World of Tanks, even if the Tiger in your garage has the KWK-43 L71 88mm gun, when you get into the historical battle, it'll have the KWK-36 L56 88mm gun, because that's historically accurate. So that's good, you know, and we did that too. But one thing that we did in our historical battles that Wargaming are not doing in theirs is with regards to crew skills. And I'm not talking about crew skills like Sixth Sense on your commander and Snapshot on your gunner and things like that. Back when we were running our own historical battles, these skills weren't even in the game. All you had were repairs, camouflage and firefighting. I'm specifically talking about things like the various different levels of crew training, so the difference between having a 50% and a 100% crew. And what we found was that very, very early on when we were running these games, because of the limitations of the World of Tanks game engine, as it is at the moment, the map size is pretty small. And with the view ranges of tanks with 100% commanders, it really meant that there just wasn't much opportunity for flanking maneuvers, which made a big, big difference when you were fighting against the Germans, driving their Tigers and their Panthers and their fantastic view range. There was very, very little way of pulling off a surprise flanking attack on the German team if everybody had 100% crews. So what we did was, purely for the purposes of running the historical battles, before you started the game, you'd put a 50% crew on your tanks, and it made a massive, massive difference. Now, given the complaints that are currently being levelled against World of Tanks historical battles, particularly, for example, the Battle of Prokhorovka, where the Germans in their Ferdinands, Tigers and Panthers, for example, as long as they stick together, the Russian team find it very, very, very difficult to beat them, because Prokhorovka is such a small map. All the maps in World of Tanks are so incredibly small that once you've detected the German team, the Russian team has very, very little opportunity to outflank them and use their superior weight of numbers, because the Germans just see them coming. And even if they don't see them coming, let's say, I don't know, a T-34 driver is particularly good and he manages to use terrain masking to get himself right around the Ferdinands, for example, and he lines himself up to take a perfect shot below the tracks off the Ferdinand who's camping the railway embankment, and then take him apart at his leisure. But the Ferdinand commander has a 100% crew, and his commander has sixth sense at 100%, and even though he hasn't seen the T-34 that's spotting him, he knows he's just been flanked. Well, with a 50% crew, stuff like that just wouldn't happen. And I was going to say I'm surprised Wargaming aren't doing that in their historical battles, because I think it might go a long way to addressing a lot of the complaints that people have with the balancing in the historical battles currently on the test server. And I'm sure they've got their reasons for it. I don't know, I mean, maybe the reason is simply that Wargaming don't want to have to put up with the complaints of people who've spent an awful lot of time and effort getting to the 4th crew skill on their Pershing commander, for example. I don't know, that's as good a reason as any. But I do feel that, given the complaints that people are having with balancing in the historical battles, there's a real simple way of fixing a lot of the problems, and that's just make everybody play with 50% crews. It worked for us. And Wargaming were 100% aware of the way that we set up and played our own historical battles, including the 50% crew thing. And they know exactly why we did it. We submit, well, keep saying we, I just played the games. But the players who ran and organised the historical battles submitted official reports to Wargaming. There was a lot of official interest from Wargaming, and at the time, and this was 2, maybe even 3 years ago, Wargaming were very keen on the idea of introducing historical battles as an official game mode. But then the whole idea seemed to just die a death, and it didn't go anywhere fast, until now, when it's back, and it's back big time. And on that bombshell, I'm afraid I'm going to have to end it here. Massively busy day ahead of me tomorrow, and I really do need to start putting this video to bed, getting it uploaded, and then cracking on, getting the room set up, ready to receive the new computer, which, fingers crossed, will go without a hitch, and you'll still get your video every day. So I've got a real ball ache of a day ahead of me, but hey, at the end of it I'll have a fully set up man cave and a brand spanking new Cyber Ninja PC to play my favourite games on. So it's not all bad. As always, folks, take care out there, have fun playing whatever you're playing, and I'll catch you next time.